Welcome to Pages and Pods. This episode begins a new series titled Conversations with the Rebbetzin. The idea grew out of ongoing talks with the Rebbetzin of the shul I attend, where we discuss Kabbalah, the Zohar, and especially a work called the Tanya, written by Rabbi Shneer Zalman of Liadi, the founder of the Chabad movement, which emerged within the broader Orthodox Hasidic revival of the 18th century. These podcasts will run alongside my other episodes, which have mostly focused on Rudolf Steiner and anthroposophy, and my personal attempt to understand how spiritual realities shape everyday life. Now, I realize already I'm tossing out a lot of terminology, so let's put things in perspective. A Rebbetzin is the wife of a rabbi. Depending on her community, her role may be large or small, public or private, but in Chabad, the Rebbetzin is an essential half of a team. Together with her husband, they serve as shluchim, or emissaries of the Rebbe. Chabad is one of many traditions in Judaism. It was founded by Rabbi Shneer Zalman of Liadi, a small town in modern-day Belarus. The name Chabad comes from the Hebrew initials of Chokma, which is wisdom, Binah, understanding, and Daat, knowledge. 3 intellectual faculties in Kabbalah. Chabad is a spiritual movement within Judaism that emphasizes deep intellectual engagement with faith, alongside complete observance of the mitzvot, which can be thought of as good deeds, and is dedicated to spreading Jewish learning and practice worldwide. Chabad has been guided by a succession of Rebbes, beginning with Rabbi Shneer Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe. The last Rebbe to lead Chabad Lubavitch was Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, known simply as the Rebbe. Under his leadership, a worldwide network of husband and wife teams, shluchim, was established. Their mission is to spread Torah and mitzvot by being a living example of an observant, joyous Jewish life, and to reach every Jew with love and inspiration. There were many schools of Kabbalah in Jewish history, among them the teachings of Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, known as the Ari, the meditative path of Rabbi Avraham Abulafia, as well as many others. The most central text of Kabbalah is the Zohar, traditionally attributed to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, though it was first published in Spain in the 13th century, connected to Rabbi Moshe de Leon. Against this backdrop, Rabbi Shneer Zalman of Liadi, the Alter Rebbe, took these mystical teachings and distilled them into a practical guide for life. His book, the Tanya, first printed in 1796, is the foundational text of Chabad Chassidus. It shows how the deepest ideas of Kabbalah can be applied to the daily struggles, choices, and spiritual growth of every Jew. Hasidism began in the 18th century with the teachings of a rabbi called the Baal Shem Tov, who inspired Jews to serve God with joy, warmth, and heartfelt devotion. It taught that every Jew, no matter their level of learning, could connect deeply to Hashem, another name for God, through prayer, mitzvot, and everyday life. Out of this movement grew Chabad Chassidus. Chabad emphasized using the mind through wisdom, understanding, and knowledge to awaken the heart so that love and awe of God would flow naturally into action. Most of the time, when I had questions about mystical Judaism, I directed them to the rabbi of the shul I attend, or sometimes to one of the adjunct rabbis. But on occasion, when he was busy, I turned to his wife, the Rebbetzin. I was struck by the depth of her knowledge. Unlike rabbis who spend at least 5 to 7 years in formal study, Rebbetzins don't typically go through the same structured training. When I asked her how she came to know so much, she reminded me that she had helped all 5 of her sons with their learning, and along the way, built her own serious course of study. Out of those conversations, we began arranging regular discussions on topics from the Tanya. These talks brought a unique and valuable feminine perspective to the ongoing conversations I was already having with the rabbi. We built our discussions around 2 volumes titled The Practical Tanya by Rabbi Chaim Miller, a contemporary teacher of Chassidus. The first volume shows how the Tanya guides us to bring mystical awareness into our daily lives, integrating the physical and the spiritual so that both become part of a deeper relationship with God. The second volume explores the nature of God and the soul as described in the Tanya, with background from Zohar and later Kabbalistic teachings. The word practical is important. The Tanya isn't just abstract mysticism or hidden secrets. Rabbi Shneer Zalman wrote it as a handbook for the soul, a step-by-step guide to understanding yourself, your struggles, and how to serve God with both mind and heart. It takes the most profound ideas of Kabbalah and Hasidus and brings them down into your daily life so that every Jew can find a path to a meaningful connection with Hashem. And oh, by the way, the literal translation of Hashem is the name, which parenthetically ends with, which is not to be said out loud. Now that I've explained the terminology and background for this study, let's begin with the first important question. What does the Tanya tell us about the soul? Now I need to pause for a moment of clarity about the Tanya, which was written by Rabbi Shneer Zalman of Liadi for a Jewish audience. And within its pages, he speaks of the Jewish soul in a very particular way. I can't pretend that isn't the case. It was part of his worldview. But at the same time, the beauty of these teachings is that their wisdom speaks to the human heart beyond boundaries. Whether in the Tanya, the Zohar, or other streams of Kabbalah, the central idea is that a human being carries within them both a higher soul that longs for holiness and an earthly soul that pulls towards survival and self. That inner dialogue is not just Jewish, it's universal. So in this podcast, while remaining transparent about the Tanya's original language and audience, we'll explore these teachings as a window into the nature of the human soul in a way that any listener can recognize in their own life. Judaism teaches that souls exist on many levels, from the loftiest spiritual masters to those whose divine connections may seem hidden. This idea of spiritual gradation has parallels in other traditions, like Buddhism and Hinduism, where the soul is refined through cycles of personal development and reincarnation. Yet the Tanya introduces something unique, the doctrine of two souls. Every person, from the most righteous to the most ordinary, lives with two inner forces. The animal soul is drawn to physical pleasure, ego, and self-gratification. The divine soul longs for transcendence, meaning, and a connection to something infinite. Life, then, is not about erasing the animal soul, but about transforming and elevating it. These negative forces are called Kelipot, a word that literally means peel or shell. Just as a shell covers and hides the fruit within, the Kelipot conceal the light of the divine soul. In the language of the Zohar, they are the Sitra Achra, the other side, meaning everything that pulls us away from holiness. According to the Tanya, they are not abstract forces floating somewhere out there. They are embodied in us, the animal soul rooted in the very blood that gives us life. Meanwhile, the divine soul expresses itself through the higher faculties, the mind, where we contemplate, and the heart, where we feel love and awe. So the Kelipot form a shell that weighs us down in instinct and desire, while the divine soul seeks to break through with clarity and holiness. The Tanya goes further and explains how the Kelipot express themselves through what it calls the four negative elements. Each element gives rise to a destructive tendency. From fire comes anger and arrogance. From water comes desire and self-indulgence. From air comes frivolity and empty chatter. And from earth comes laziness and melancholy. These aren't abstract ideas. They show up in our daily lives. When our thoughts, speech, and actions are driven by these forces, They become the garments of the animal soul, the way it clothes itself to act out its drives. The use of natural elements to explain the human condition occurs throughout many cultures. Plato described the cosmos as composed of four primary elements: fire, air, water, and earth, a framework that Aristotle refined by showing how each is defined by hot, cold, wet, and dry, and how they transform into one another as the basis of nature. Galen carried this further into medicine, linking the four elements to the humors and temperaments so that health became a matter of maintaining balance, while Avicenna built on both Aristotle and Galen, embedding the classical elements into his canon of medicine, which shaped healing practices for centuries. Paracelsus preserved the fourfold structure, but gave it spiritual depth by describing elemental beings: gnomes of earth, undines of water, sylphs of air, and salamanders of fire. I have a podcast about this in the channel. In contrast, Chinese medicine offered a different vision, replacing the four with five elements: wood, fire, earth, metal, and water, whose balance is essential for human physical and emotional health. What makes the Tanya unique is not just that it names these forces, but that it gives us a spiritual path to work with them and the emotions they engender. The goal is not to destroy or suppress these feelings, but to transform their energy. Anger can be turned into righteous passion, desire into love of what's holy, even laziness into humility and patience. In Hasidus, nothing in the human soul is wasted. Every force can be redirected to serve a higher purpose. But how is this possible? How can the divine soul not only overcome the drives of the animal soul, but, as the Tanya teaches, actually transform those very drives into something good? In one of my conversations with the Rebbetzin, we spoke about the idea of Yirah, often translated as fear of God. I admitted to her that I first understood it literally as fear. She corrected me. In Hasidic thought, Yirah is better understood as awe, the kind of reverence you might feel standing before a great king, a ruler, even a president. No matter how you feel personally about that leader, you still recognize and respect the authority and power they hold. But with God, it goes deeper. The awe we speak of in Hasidus is not only respect for divine power, it is the awareness that this power is the source of everything, including your own soul. To stand in awe of God is to recognize that the same infinite source that created the stars and the galaxy also breathed life into you. That awareness is what awakens the divine soul to shine through, and it is what allows even the negative energies of the animal soul to be redirected towards holiness. Do you want to live your life seeking to connect with all that is pure and holy? Or do you want to live your life chasing transient feelings born of fleeting desires? That was the Rebbetzins question to me, and I'll admit she got me on that one. Most of my life has not been focused on the divine. But the way she put it was clarifying. Life is a series of choices. On one side, the path of mental purity and clarity, the perspective of the divine soul. On the other, the overstimulation and fogginess that comes from chasing endless appetites, the pool of the animal soul. And the question that haunts us is, if clarity is so much better, why do we so often choose the fog? The Hasidic path is one where we strive to nurture bitul, which translates as humility, awe, and reverence for God, that lets the divine soul shine through. Do you want to build a future where each day feels more purposeful, where your family grows stronger and healthier, and where the problems born of foolish desires begin to lose their grip? This is the path that Tanya lays out, a way of living based on spiritual understanding of the world and of your true place in it. Let's pause on that thought. Life is really a matter of spiritual choices. Do we give in to the animal soul and feed the ego, or do we turn our minds and hearts towards God, resisting the compulsions and desires that only bring trouble in the end? We all know the answer, yet somehow we still follow the animal soul more often than we'd like. Join me in the next episode of the series titled Conversations with the Rebbetzin, where we will examine how to transform the negative desires of the animal soul into divine energy. If you found value in this conversation, please click like, subscribe, and share it with others. It may seem like a small action, but it helps to expand the reach of this channel.